Hello, everybody, and welcome to Politically Black with Zach. And today we are talking to Atlanta's, Georgia's Gen Z candidate for State Senate District 48, Ashwin Ramaswamy. Ashwin, thank you so much for taking time to share space with me today on Politically Black.
Thanks for having me here, Zach.
You know, I'm really excited to talk to you. I've seen you on MSNBC. You've been making the rounds. You're all over the media as this huge political force representing America's next great generation, Gen Z. And you are running for our state Senate congressional district that encompasses a part of Forsyth County, Johns Creek. Tell our viewers just a little bit about your district.
Sure. So my district includes parts of North Fulton, South Forsyth, and also North Gwinnett. It includes a large part of Johns Creek, and it goes all the way up a bit close to Cumming, and it goes to Suwanee, Sugar Hill, a little bit part of Alpharetta and Buford. So it's a pretty big district.
That's a very large district. And so traditionally, this is like a Republican win zone, right?
That's what people initially thought. But I think what's happening is that the district's changing, both through trends around suburban voters souring on Trump and wanting to change what they believe in, and also immigrants coming in as well. So we have a pretty large, actually, Asian population in this district. It's around 30% Asian, and I think nearly half of those are South Asian folks as well.
So in a district that's currently 30% Asian, with the predominant focus or predominant group being our South Asian immigrants coming over to the United States who have worked hard, are you finding that they are ready to vote Democrat, or are they leaning towards Republican values in this state?
I think part of it is that we don't have as many South Asian politicians, to be honest, in the state of Georgia. We have a few, but in particular, we don't have a single, for example, Indian American in the state capitol. And I think what ends up happening is that the people who people end up voting for are people who just show up to the events. And those typically tend to be the people already in power who are the Republicans. So I think it's been changing now because someone like me, who's coming from the community, I grew up here, is now running for office. I think people are tending to see that, hey, I'm the future. I would say a lot of South Asians actually, they believe that businesses are important and we want to encourage small business, but they also believe in reproductive rights and they believe in gun safety. Two things which are typically Democrat. So what I've been talking about is that, hey, I share your values. I believe in these issues, but I'm also going to make sure that we can have entrepreneurship and innovation. I don't think Democrats should be painted as the anti-business party in a way, because we can support both workers and business at the same time.
So you were, you were reared in this district, graduated high school in this district, and then you went off to California for college. You went to Stanford, and now you're coming back. What has motivated you to go from Stanford education, law school, to running for Senate 48?
Let me tell you one important lesson I learned just growing up here. I went to public schools, as you mentioned. I went to Taylor Road Middle School, Chattahoochee High, and I also was quite involved in a community center here for Indian American students. And there I learned about this value called seva, which means giving back to the community, giving more than what you take. That's something which always stuck with me. So even when I went to Stanford for computer science, I had two choices. I could go work in Silicon Valley, make a ton of money, or I could go work in the government, do public service. And I picked the latter because for me, that was what was part of my value, or I want to make sure that others are benefiting from what I'm working on and the opportunities I have. So I worked for a bit on election security and cybersecurity in 2020. Right, when all this stuff was happening, you must have seen all the news on that. And we were working with both Democrats and Republicans across the country. We worked with states to make sure that they could keep their elections secure. And that's when I really realized that we need people who understand technology and government. And after that, I went to law school because I was interested in doing more of this work, not the work on just building technology, but on the work on how can society regulate and make sure we're dealing with it appropriately. And the reason I decided to run is because I've always wanted to serve my own community, which built me into who I am today. And I saw the news that the current state senator from my hometown was a fake elector. He was indicted with Trump for trying to overturn the 2020 election results. And when I saw that, I thought that's not the issues which my community is facing. When I was growing up, and in terms of what's happening now, is that I've seen the issues that teachers are not being paid enough. My teachers, when I go back and visit them, they're not able to afford supplies for their schools, even though we have some of the best public schools in the state.
Some of the most affluent schools in the state of Georgia are in your congressional zone.
Exactly. And even there, they don't have the funding they need. And even those schools are doing well, there's a lot of mental health problems beneath the surface. There isn't enough counseling and support. The opioid epidemic is hitting people really hard. There's not enough access to healthcare. Johns Creek, this area is known as an affluent place, but we have the haves and the have-nots. And we want to make sure we're taking care of everyone and giving those kinds of resources as well.
You hit on so many issues just now that are impacting Georgia voters, not just in Senate District 48, but across the state. When you are elected, Ashwin, to serve the people of Georgia, specifically your district, what is going to be priority number one for you?
For me, priority number one will be to expand access to Medicaid. That's, I think, the biggest thing that's like we should be doing this right now. Because quite literally, it's not even going to cost us like a huge amount of money. We're taking, right now, we have federal money, which is currently going from our taxes to the federal government. It's being used to subsidize Medicaid expansion in states like California, all these other states, and it's not coming back to us. And to me, that's one example of the Republicans just, ideologically saying, we don't want Obamacare, we don't want this, when we're just taking money off the table.
But Ashwin, how are you going to make that happen? So
Yes.
I'm so glad you said that, of course,
Yes.
right? Like, I'm someone who was committed to the vision that Stacey Abrams had for the state of Georgia because of what she wanted to do to ensure that every single Georgian had health care, that every single Georgian life mattered, that every single Georgian had an opportunity to the promise of America to truly be able to have life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But we just found out recently in this congressional session, House Bill 1077 was defeated when we thought maybe finally Republicans were going to let Medicare like push through, defeated. What are some things that maybe could have happened differently for what you're saying, this vision that every Georgian can have appropriate health care could have happened? Like, where did we go wrong?
We should have elected more Democrats to the state legislature. And I would say the pressure has been working. There have been hearings on Medicaid expansion. There have been many Republicans who've started supporting it because they just see the math and they see the facts that it's not working. And even recently, that recent bill, it was a very close vote, which made it no longer pass. And even the people who didn't pass it are like, we should take another look next year. So I think the public pressure is mounting. It's clear that Georgians want Medicaid to be expanded. And I think showing that Republicans will lose on that issue is a great way to show that that's a priority that Georgians want.
So that number one, we need to get more Democrats in the state house, both the Senate and the House of Representatives. And then two, we need to continue to apply pressure as a general public saying this is what Georgians want. Because right now, Republicans have a 32-23 majority in the Senate and a 98-79 majority in the House.
That's correct. And I've been very clear with voters. When I get elected, I can't pass every single bill I want on day one because we don't have a majority, right? But what I tell people is two things. One is politics is for the long game. You can't make all the change you want just in one election cycle. Hopefully, my election will lead to more folks getting elected in the future and can lead to a flip of the Senate in the future. But it takes, one step at a time to make that happen. And the second thing is there's a lot of things you can do just with that soft power. You don't have to, there's so much change you can make without necessarily passing a bill. The fact that I can go and convene a hearing or work with folks to do that, or I can work with people across the aisle to make sure we work on issues that matter to both of us. Or the fact that I can actually go and say, I'm a state senator and this is important, means that there's a new voice in the mix. And that voice is very much worth it.
So Ashwin, one thing that the current person who serves the congressional, the Senate District 48 is Shawn Still. And he was a fake elector for Donald Trump in the efforts to overturn our 16 delegates that were rightfully earned and went for President Joseph Robinette Biden. When I think of Johns Creek, when I think of Cumming, when I think of your district, I envision a man like Shawn Still. But from our pre-discussion, you're saying that's really not your district. That's not who you are. as a district. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, it's not who we are. And I'll first of all start with the numbers. This district is actually the most purple state Senate seat in Georgia for this cycle.
Wait, repeat that.
It's the most purple state Senate seat in Georgia.
So what does that mean? Because I'm still in shock about hearing that Georgia's Senate District 48 is purple and not light red or even dark red.
Not dark red at all. I'll tell you, with these current lines that we have now, in 2020, it was very close between Biden and Trump. I think Biden got 48.4%, and I think Trump got 51.6%. So it wasn't like a huge margin. And I would say that over time, I think people have shown that like the district can flip. In 2022, in the runoffs, in fact, Senator Raphael Warnock flipped the district, and he won the district by a sliver. I think that shows that if we have the right people in office, people in this district don't want extremists from really any side, right? The people just want to live their normal lives and want to make sure government's working for them. They don't want a state senator who's going to go and just get involved in all these national controversies and not focus on the issues that matter to them. They want someone who's going to really just say, like, I'm willing to work with both sides, and I'm going to work for all folks in the district as well.
It is something, I agree 120%. Yeah. It's not just the people of the Senate District 48, but it's really all of Georgia. They just really want people to do their jobs well, and put the needs of the people first. And it sounds like you're coming in with a commitment to do that. What is the biggest obstacle that you think you're going to face in winning this election?
I think the biggest obstacle in this election will be raising money. The reason I'm saying that is because I would be the youngest state senator if elected. I would be 25 and the first Gen Z member of the state Senate. And this system that we have, the political system, is tilted toward those who already have large amounts of wealth and large amounts of connections. And the fact is, if you're in your 20s, maybe your friends are just out of college. I mean, maybe they can't give you that much money, right? And last year, Shawn Still put in $300,000 of his own money into the election to win. So for this election, I've been appealing to folks to say, we're building a grassroots campaign to flip this seat, because you have to match your opponent at least. That's how you can get your voice out. And that's, I think, going to be the biggest obstacle, because I think once I get to meet folks and all that, like, people see that I'm genuine, and they understand that I've been living in this district for so long. I grew up here, and I face the same problems that people are facing every day as well.
How have you fared so far in regards to being able to match your opponent's fundraising efforts?
So far, we've exceeded his efforts, which has been great so far. I would say, though, people in the General Assembly, they can't raise money until after session is over, which will be at the end of March. So that's partially why we've outraised my opponent. We have, in fact, outraised him. In the last cycle, we outraised him 8-1 in terms of the amount of money we raised. And I think it's because my opponent underestimated me, and he wasn't able to raise money until April. But we fully expect, we don't know what will happen after April. I'm sure there will be lots of other money coming into that election.
But if every Gen Z voter gave $5, then you're going to be more than halfway there and beating whatever they are able to fundraise. And then anyone who's simply concerned about ensuring that that we send a clear message that in the state of Georgia, the people of Georgia and the voice of Georgians matter more than anything else, more than any fake elector scheme, more than any other attempt to steal an election. It's about democracy and democracy counting. And everyone who believes that contributes to this campaign, I think you're going to have a strong chance of doing what you need to do to win this election.
Definitely. And that's the goal. And I would say for folks who do want to contribute or volunteer or help us out, you can go to ashwinforgeorgia.com.
And that's a starting point. Well, I'm going to share that, of course, on this episode of Politically Black in the show notes. Also, we'll be sharing it on social media as you push this campaign forward. I really appreciate you for taking time out of your very busy day. I know that you're off now to another event back in the district in Johns Creek. So I just want to thank you for taking some time to share with us and to just be introduced to us. And I look forward to having you back as we get closer to the actual election, because you don't have a primary opponent, correct?
No, I don't have a primary opponent.
So you are able to really dig in and just go for it. You have the nomination for the you are the Democratic candidate for this seat. And now it's just about going forward and making it to November and getting the win.
Thank you. And one thing I'll just note is that this is Again, it's the most competitive state Senate seat, but it's one of the most competitive races in Georgia this cycle, period. Because so many of the other districts are either gerrymandered or that it's not going to be a competitive race. But if people are looking for how can we flip Georgia presidentially, you need to focus on the folks down ballot who are facing competitive races like mine. Because if we can turn out those voters who wouldn't have come if not for me, those folks can vote for Biden. They can make sure we keep Georgia blue this cycle as well.
Right. So getting them motivated for you also gets them motivated for Biden and Kamala Harris on that ticket and other Democratic priorities that exist. And I think it's really important. And something else that you said previously was that this district went for Senator Warnock as opposed to his opponent, Herschel Walker. And that's another, again, so it's about, can we continue the momentum of this district from 2022 into 2024.
Right. And the way we do that is focusing on the local issues, not on the national controversies.
Right.
And that's my goal.
Well, thank you so much, Ashwin. It's been a pleasure. And everybody, thank you guys so much for checking us out. Can't wait to see you again next week.